Welcome back. Well, it's been a lively and interesting discussion today. A couple of points of interest to me. First, Jeff, just harking back to Australia, as we all know, it's been in the grip of a devastating drought for years now. But what benefits has that drought had for us as agricultural exporters and filling the vacuum, I guess, benefiting from their misfortune? I don't want to sound unsympathetic to the Australians, but has there been an advantage for us?
I don't think that there has been.
No,
I mean, you know, they're great wheat and barley producers, which is not really our forte.
Sure.
We'd like them to buy more apples, of course, but but I mean, I guess from New Zealand's point of view, if we could export water to them, that would be great.
Wouldn't it?
But I don't think we've had a lot of benefit. I mean, one of the things that's happened with the mining boom in Australia is it's pushed up, you know, the cost of labour right around Australia. So both the manufacturing sector and the farming sector are struggling with higher wage costs, higher superannuation taxes in future, and a higher exchange rate. So I mean, the fact that our currency is weakened against Australia should help us in independent markets. So.
But despite all those, the stock, having to live on substandard conditions on drought-stricken land, you'd think there would have been a drop-off in exports that we could have taken advantage of it, but they seem to still be churning out that beef and lamb, don't they? And of
but is it as good as ours? I mean, but I mean, the thing in Australia you've always got going for you is the land's cheap. I mean, New Zealand land, the price of land is expensive, and so your input costs in Australia are a lot cheaper, from land, even if labour and the other things are higher. So they've got an advantage.
Good point. Now, James, we were talking about the Singaporeans buying into the Uruguayan operation, which reminded me, where are things at with that other possible Asian investment in New Zealand with the Mei Wang and her Chinese backers buying the Crayford farms and setting up a dairying operation here? There's been some pretty strong feelings around that, but what's actually happening at the moment, do you know?
Yes, that's a good question. It seems to be dragging on for quite a while. I mean, I've seen some reports that the OIO's looking into the purchase of their 4 farms so far already and see whether they actually comply with their requirements. The other Crayford farms, the other 16 that are currently, the entity is sort of in receivership. So there's a tender process going on at the moment that ends at the end of June. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens then, who buys those farms and, what they decide to do with it down the track. So it's still up in the air at the moment. It's going to be that way for a while.
What sort of feedback are you getting, Jeff, from your clients about this whole issue of Asian investment, I guess, in New Zealand land? Is there some unease that comes back to you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
what are the grounds?
At the end of the day, I mean, if you look back over the last 20 years as we kind of repaid debt and got ourselves in a better financial position, we basically sold off all the banks, all the insurance companies, all the breweries, most of the media are all Australian-owned. And all the benefits accrue to Australian, largely shareholders, because not many New Zealanders are shareholders. When you got to the family farm, you're going to start selling off, some of the acreage to foreign interests. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, dairying's been one of our big success stories, and we should be protective of it. I mean, certainly China's very protective of their market, even though they supposedly have free trade. Sometimes we're naive. We think that everyone plays by the same rules, and they don't.
Indeed. Yeah, it's an interesting point. In fact, one of my guests said last week, I'm saying I'd never heard, but it's a very good one. It's an old peasant saying, never sell your land. So maybe we should take a leaf out of that book.
Well, maybe they could lease the land, but I don't. Yes. I'm definitely against selling it.
Right, indeed. Well, Jeff, what's in store over the next week? Just briefly, any predictions from you, apart obviously from the budget?
We've just, got volatility at the moment. If you look at financial markets, just before Christmas, Dubai said that they couldn't meet their debts, and we had some volatility for a week or two, and we've certainly had plenty of wobbles in the last couple of weeks to do with Greece and, European situation. That will probably settle down now that you've got this rescue package out there. And then financial markets will go back to looking at, how's the economy doing? Are companies still maintaining their profits? And things will settle down again. But, the great thing about markets is there's always uncertainty. I mean, last year in March was a fantastic time to be buying investment assets, but lots of people didn't because they sat in the bank.
Yes.
So, it creates opportunity. I mean, as perverse as it is, I mean, what happens? Are there any benefits for New Zealand farmers when you look at what's happening in Japan with foot and mouth. I mean, will that help beef exports?
Well, indeed.
It's kind of perverse. But.
And James, anything in your crystal ball for the coming week?
I guess the big thing will be what happens with the budget, and what happens with Europe too. I mean, if they don't get things going, then they could have a big impact on the global growth outlook and for commodity prices for us in New Zealand. So that's going to be something that we should watch closely.
Indeed. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks to my guests, rural economist James Shortall and financial advisor Jeff Matthews from Spices. Well, we'd love to hear your feedback, so please go to our website and drop us a line. And check out our latest edition, my weekly blog. You can find that and much more besides at www.country99tv.co.nz. We'll see you next week.